gather the people together, and I will give them water. Then Israel sang this song, Spring up, O well, all of you, sing to it. The well the leaders sank, dug by the nation's nobles, by the lawgiver with their staves. So this is a pleasant surprise in the wilderness. They came across a well. You remember they said, can God, when they were in seasons of unbelief, can God provide water in the desert? In their unbelief, that's kind of like a cynical. We hear God says, I can provide water in the desert. I have surprises for you. And I will take care of you. And I will be with you. And I will let you know that I'm with you by giving those special blessings. You know, that's one of the ways that we can be assured that God is with us, because sometimes we have something in our life that we need and God makes it happen. It's almost like, God, are you listening to me and you're actually making this happen? It's like a real special blessing. It's just an affirmation the Lord is present in our life. So what a happy time. Apparently the leaders took their staves and dug in the ground. The leaders did. And it came up the water. And there must have been a lot of water, because how many people we're talking about?
Millions. A lot.
Millions. Okay, this isn't like Old Woman Springs. This is a real spring. This is like Newberry Springs kind of.
Actually, Old Woman Springs used to be a lot better.
So from there they go here and here and here and here, and that's where we stop. So they are making progress, and on the way they're singing. There's joy in their hearts. We sing because we are happy. So there's the joy of the Lord, and seeing His goodness and faithfulness displayed is causing them to sing. Praise God. But some people are going to be not so happy that they're coming their way. And they're going to resist. They're going to resist them. So let's talk about, before we read about, let's just talk about some of the landscape. So we get a little bit of idea over what we're trying to read and try to understand. So the children of Israel are coming this way. So they cannot go into the land of Moab, because Moab is not promised to them at this time. So they have to go around Moab. And as they go into here, they're met by Sihon, an Amorite king. Also, they're met by Og. He is the king of this area. So in this direction are the Ammonites. And the Ammonites are a brother nation to the Moabites. And God said, you can't have their land, because they're both descendants of Lot. And Lot is related to Abraham. So they're all in the same family. But God said, the iniquity of the Amorites is building up while the people of Israel are in Egypt. It's building up, and when it's all filled up, God will pour His wrath on the Amorites, and God will give them over to judgment. That's true of the Canaanites. So the people of Israel are promised the land on this side of the Jordan River, the west side of the Jordan River. The Canaanites live there. The Amorites live on the east side, and they are not promised the land on the east side. They're promised the land on the west side. But the Amorites are resisting Israel. We'll see their resistance. And the Amorites control the kingdom of Sihon in the south, and the kingdom of Og in the north, control this huge area of land. From here, the river Arnon, all the way up to Mount Hermon. Way up there. I don't know, is Mount Hermon on the map? it's above there. So you're looking at how many miles? Anybody know how many miles?
Good 201.
150 miles,
Wow.
okay, of territory, okay? So, the rivers provide the boundaries. And when we think about a river, we're talking about, they're usually in, because this is a dry area, and when the water flows, it begins to cause erosion, so they're usually in rifts. We know that over here, right, 2,000 feet one side, 1,900 feet on the other side, that's a very distinct boundary. So these rivers provide very distinct boundaries, and that's how they determine territory at this time. So if the children of Israel are going to come and take the land, they can't take the land of Moab. They have to be very clear where the boundaries are. That's why you have that information given in what Moses records. And then we're going to see another interesting feature as we move forward. But here's this river, and this river here, called the Jabbok River. There's another river way up north, but that doesn't seem to come into play at this section in the book of Numbers. All right, so just giving you a little idea of the terrain. So Moab to here is 45 miles. The area of Moab is 45 miles. So it's like right about here. The Ammonites are here, so the Amorites all the way from here, all the way up to there. Huge area. Okay, so let's read about the resistance from Sihon in Numbers chapter 21, verse 21 to 31. So I need someone to read Numbers 21 to 31. And then we'll talk about it.
Then Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, "Let me pass through your land. We will not turn aside into fields or vineyards. We will not drink water from wells. We will go by the king's highway until we have passed through your territory." But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his territory. So Sihon gathered all his people together and went out against Israel in the wilderness, and he came to Jahaz and fought against Israel. Then Israel defeated him with the edge of the sword and took possession of his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, as far as the people of Ammon, for the border of the people of Ammon was fortified. So Israel took all the cities, and Israel dwelt in all the cities of the Amorites, in Heshbon and in all its villages. For Heshbon was the city of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab, and had taken all his land from his hand as far as the Arnon. Therefore those who speak Proverbs say, "Come to Heshbon, let it be built, let the city of Sihon be repaired. For fire went out from Heshbon, a flame from the city of Sihon, it consumed Ar of Moab, the lords of the heights of the Arnon. Woe to you, Moab! You have perished, O people of Chemosh. He has given his sons as fugitives and his daughters into captivity to Sihon, king of the Amorites. But we have shot at them. Heshbon has perished as far as Dibon. Then we laid waste as far as Nopah, which reaches to Medeba. Thus Israel dwelt in the land of the Amorites."
Okay, I'm sorry, then can you read also verse 3?
Then Moses sent to spy out Jazer, and they took its villages and drove out the Amorites who were there.
Okay, thank you so much. So the area that we're talking about is from the Arnon to the Jabbok, from the Jabbok. And at some point in the past,
That had been
this land, an area of here once belonged to the Moabites, but the Amorites defeated the Moabites, took their land and made their land, made the Moabites their land. So when Israel took their land of the Amorites, were they taking the land of the Moabites that was forbidden? No, because once the Moabites lost their land to the Amorites, it became the Amorites' land. Okay, so there's no idea of going backwards in time and correcting that, and we'll talk about that. And the reason why we have this information put here to clarify and make it understood that the land that the Moabites lost, once it became the land of the Amorites, the Moabites no longer had a claim to it. And once the Israelites conquered the land of the Amorites, it's theirs, even though that land once belonged to the Moabites. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see that, why we have the sayings that we just read. Because isn't that strange? I mean, what Linda just read, seems very peculiar and very distant from us. So we want to understand, what's going on. So the reason why I say what I say is because it helps us to understand what's there. Now, when Moses is leading the children of Israel to the land, to the border of Sinai, he makes just a simple diplomatic request. Is he after their land?
No.
No, he just wants to go to the land, so he's asking courteously, respectfully, we'll mind our business. We won't take anything from you. But what happens when the Israelites are coming, it puts nations in a decision in place. Because either they say yes, or they say no. So what am I talking about? If Sihon says yes, then he's siding with the Israelites. If Sihon says no, he's siding with the Canaanites. Because it's public knowledge. Israel is on a mission to take the land of Canaan. Everybody in the area knows that's what's happening. And everybody understands that Yahweh, the God of Israel, who delivered the children of Israel out of the superior Egyptian gods, has shown that he is a bigger God and a stronger God and a better God than all the gods of Egypt. So this is not just political armies going at each other. This is the armies that represent their gods. So Sihon has gods that he worships. Moab has a national deity he worships. There's a reference to that national deity we just read. We'll talk more about that. But who's the national deity of Israel?
God.
Yahweh, the only true God. So when Sihon says no, he's resisting not just Israel, he's resisting Yahweh, God's plans and purposes. And so far, Egypt, the mightiest nation in the area, was totally crushed by Yahweh. Do you really want to take a chance, Sihon? You really want to take a chance? It's better for you to say, yes, we're on your side, and to rethink about your devotion to your false, empty gods, and start thinking about the glory of the true God that Israel represents. So this is not just a political event, a spiritual situation. That's what I want you to understand. That's what the text wants us to understand. We're not just talking about people, we're talking about the gods that the people represent. People fought in the names of their gods. Okay? So that would make this a certain kind of war. We call it a holy war. Not the holy war that Islam borrowed from the Old Testament and made their version of a holy war, but a true holy war. And not like the Crusades, Okay? We're not talking about those kind of conflicts. This has to do with Israel coming out of Egypt into the promised land, and God's versus the gods of the nations. This is the context for what's happening here. Okay, so they conquered them. The Israelites conquered Sidon, and they destroyed every human being, every male, every female, regardless of age. Infants, toddlers, babies, old men, old women, they totally obliterated them. They gave them over to destruction. Moses will comment on this in Deuteronomy when I come to it. Okay? And then they took, but God this time they didn't have to kill all the animals. They let the children of Israel have all the animals. So they killed every single person. That was the end. That was the end. That was the end of Sihon and his kingdom. They went into history, into non-existence. And the reason why spiritually is because they filled up the cup of their iniquity, as God told Abraham in Genesis 15:16. They filled up their cup of iniquity, and God used the Jewish people to destroy them. So they had polluted their land with all their wicked sins to the point of being so disgusting to God, God had to remove them. There's a spiritual and moral context to what's happening here. People read this only from a political standpoint, and they stumble. But it's bigger than that. There's a spiritual and moral context. So, what's the point of the proverb? Okay, so Lindsay read the proverb. Let's go back and look at the proverb and try to help you understand what's the point of that proverb. So you go back to verse 27. Therefore those who speak in proverbs say, come to Heshbon, let it be built, let the city of Sion be repaired. For fire went out from Heshbon, a flame from the city of Sion. It consumed Ar of Moab, the lords of the heights of the Arnon. Woe to you, Moab, you have perished, O people of Chemosh. He has given his sons as fugitives and his daughters into captivity to Sihon, king of the Amorites. So what basically that proverb is saying, it's an expression of the saying, to the victor goes the spoils. You ever heard that? That's the policy of war making. So if you conquer someone, you take all their property. That is how nations operated. That's the law, their law or their custom or their manner. So he's describing how Sihon, the king of the Amorites, took land from Moab. He took land from Moab. Apparently, some of this territory on the other side of the Arnon belonged to Moab, but he took it, and when he took it, it's legitimately his. But not only was the defeat of the armies, there was the defeat of the god, the national deity of Moab. The national deity of Moab is named in the poem, and his name is Chemosh. He is the national deity of the Moabites. He's like a war god, another version of Baal. And notice what the proverb says. When the Amorites defeated the Moabites, Chemosh gave over all his worshipers, men worshipers and women worshipers, to the Amorites. In other words, Chemosh failed you. When the Amorites went to battle against the Moabites, it was not just a battle against the Moabites, but against the God of the Moabites. And when the Moabites lost, Chemosh lost.
Right.
And so his worshipers were given over to the Amorites. So, who looked bad in the battle? The Moabites, because they lost. Or who else looked bad in the battle? Chemosh, because he lost. Now, Moses, the last line of the Proverbs, he's saying, what the Amorites did to the Moabites is what the Israelites did to the Amorites. So who is greater, superior? The God of Israel and the people of Israel. That's what that home is all about. So what it establishes, okay, listen now, it establishes that this land now that the Israelites have taken over, even though in the past it did include land that once belonged to the Moabites, that land is now God's land to the Jewish people. Okay? Was it promised to them? No, the land was promised is on this side. But they get to have it because they conquered, which is the law of the way nations operated back then. That is their time of it. And there's a spiritual, moral dimension because of the sins of the Amorites. Now, Moses will comment on this battle. So let's read the comments. So keep your finger in Numbers and turn to the book of Deuteronomy. We'll come back to Numbers, so keep your finger there. And let's go to Moses' comment. Turn to Deuteronomy chapter 2. Deuteronomy chapter 2. Let me begin at verse number 8 and 9. Deuteronomy 2, 8 and 9. And we passed beyond our brethren, the descendants of Esau, who dwell in Seir, away from the road of the plain, away from Elat and Ezion-Heber. We turned and passed by the way of the wilderness of Moab. Then the Lord said to me, do not harass Moab, nor contend with them in battle, for I will not give you any of their land as a possession, because I have given heir to the descendants of Lot as a possession. So this is why they did not attack the Moabites. Now go to verse 16. So it was when all the men of war had finally perished from among the people, that the Lord spoke to me, saying, this day you are crossed over to Ar, the boundary of Moab, and when you come near the people of Ammon, do not harass them, or meddle with them, for I will not give any of the land of the people of Ammon as a possession, because I have given it to the descendants of Lot as a possession. Then, verse 26. And I sent messengers from the wilderness of Kidamam to Sihon, king of Heshbon, with words of peace, saying, let me pass through your land. I will keep strictly to the road. I will turn neither to the right nor to the left. You shall sell me food for the money that I may eat, and give me water for money that I may drink. Only let me pass through on foot, just as the descendants of Esau who dwell in Seir, and the Moabites who dwell in Ar did for me, until I cross the Jordan to the land which the Lord our God is giving us. But Sihon, king of Heshbon, would not let us pass through, for the Lord your God hardened his spirit and made his heart obstinate, that he might deliver him into your hand as it is this day. And the Lord said to me, see, I have begun to give Sihon and his land over to you. Begin to possess it, that you may inherit his land. Then Sihon and all his people came out against us to fight at Jahaz, and the Lord our God delivered him over to us. So we defeated him, his sons, and all his people. We took all his cities at that time, and we utterly destroyed the men, women, and little ones of every city. We left none remaining. We took only the livestock as plunder for ourselves, with the spoil of the cities which we took from Aror, which is on the bank of the river Arnon, and from the city that is in the ravine, as far as Gilead. There was not one city too strong for us, for the Lord our God delivered all to us. Only you did not go near the land of the people of Ammon, anywhere along the river Jabbok, or the cities of mountains, or wherever the Lord our God forbidden us. So Moses is telling them that they killed everybody because they devoted those people to destruction, since God had already sentenced them to destruction. And Sihon, why did he not show kindness to Israel? Because since his cup of iniquity was full, he was obstinate. And you know somebody is really in a bad spot spiritually when they're so stubborn and arrogant and pride. Judgment's going to come. Just on a personal level. That was on the national level. So then they conquer and they take over the land. But we're not done yet, because here comes Og way up north, a huge area. He's going to come after Israel too. He's an Amorite king also. Okay, so since we're in Deuteronomy, let's read the commentary first. Then we'll go back to the history. So I need somebody to read Deuteronomy 3, 1 to 11.
I got it.
All right.
Then we turned and went up the way to Bashan, and Og, the king of Bashan, came out against us, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. But the Lord said to me, do not fear him, for I have given him and all his people and his land into your hand. And you shall do to him as you did to Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon. So the Lord our God gave into our hand Og also, the king of Bashan, and all his people, and we struck him down until he had no survivor left. And we took all his cities at that time. There was not a city that we did not take from them. 60 cities, the whole region of Argob, the kingdom of Og and Bashan. All these were cities fortified with high walls, gates, and bars, besides very many unwalled villages. And we devoted them to destruction, as we did to Sihon, the king of Heshbon, devoting to destruction every city, men, women, and children. But all the livestock and the spoil of the cities we took as our plunder. So we took the land at that time out of the hand of the two kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, from the valley of the Arnon to Mount Hermon. The Sidonians called Hermon Syrian, while the Amorites called it Senir. All the cities of the tableland and all Gilead and all Bashan, as far as Silica and Edrei, cities of the kingdom of Og and Bashan. For only Og, the king of Bashan, was left of the remnant of the Rephaim. Behold, his bed was a bed of iron. Is it not in Rabbah of the Ammonites? 9 cubits was its length, and 4 cubits its breadth, according to the common cubit.
So this king Og, he was a giant. And to tell you the size of his bed. So his bed was big because he was a big man. You remember what the old generation kept saying? The cities are what? Too tall.
Yeah.
And there's what?
Giants.
Giants. Okay? The new generation is not like that. The old generation was afraid to fight for the blessings of God's promises. The new generation wants to fight for what God has promised them. The big difference. So the reason why Moses brings in Og, how big he was, is he was nothing. When God gave power to the Israelites, they conquered him. And this is a very large area. We're talking about the river. I'll keep going over there. The river Jabbok. Right? Where is it? All the way up to Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is in Lebanon. This is a massive area. How many cities? 60 cities. And now with all this Amorite territory conquered, the children of Israel don't have to worry about looking behind their back if anybody's going to conquer them, because they're on the verge of crossing the Jordan River and start conquering the Promised Land. You see how close they are? This is so positive, encouraging. The Promised Land is theirs. It's theirs. And God has blessed them. And they were minding their own business, right? But God turned around the difficulty and made it to a blessing. Now, why are we spending all this time talking about this? Because I want to give you something that's called a polemic. I don't know if you heard what a polemic is. A polemic is like a defense for the faith, to help you not be embarrassed when educated people who seem to go to universities or colleges, secular institutions, like to say the Jewish people are guilty of genocide. So if you know what genocide is, when you wipe out a whole nation. Okay? And you know, as if you're a Christian and you're witnessing to someone like this, and they say this to you, you might be embarrassed. Because yeah, the Jewish people did wipe out whole nations. But there's absolutely no reason to be embarrassed. Because, two factors why you're not embarrassed. Because we live in a moral universe. There is real right and there is real wrong. There's objective morality, and when people sin and nations fill up their cups of sin, they deserve the wrath of God. That is a teaching in the Bible that we're not ashamed of. That's why we preach the gospel. What is the gospel? Good news of deliverance from judgment that you deserve because of your sins. To be embarrassed of the genocide is to be embarrassed of an element of the gospel. And we're not ashamed of Christ. We're not ashamed of the reason why he came to die. We're not ashamed of the fact that we're all under sin and judgment and we need salvation. So we're not ashamed because of that, even though they call it genocide to criticize the Bible. Why do they criticize the Bible? Because they don't want you to believe in the Bible. They want to tear down people's confidence in the Bible. And if you go to a secular institution or talk to an educated liberal in a secular institution, they'll accuse Israel of genocide. They don't understand we live in a moral, spiritual universe. Number two, they don't understand that the tactics of conquering and taking property is how these ancient peoples operated. They don't operate by our standard. Because look at us. We're looking at them from our perspective how many years later?
Thousands.
That's not how they operated. You know the American Indians fought with each other for hundreds and hundreds of years before the white man came, and they took territory from each other.
Right.
And that's the way it was. And nobody said, oh, let's make it all even. Let's go back to who had it first. That's not how they operated. So these people operate according to the norms of warfare, the way they did things. So people who claim the Jewish people are guilty of genocide, not only do they not lack a spiritual, moral understanding, they just even don't know history, the way things function in history. So the reason why we help you try to understand this is there is absolutely no reason to be ashamed of what you read in the book of Joshua, all the genocide. Because it is not, it's more than that. There's a spiritual and culture and historical context for Joshua and the Israelites. This is just the beginning. I mean, them conquering these two peoples on the east side and devoting all their children and everything to destruction, we ain't seen nothing yet. Because when they come into the land, the promise of the Canaanites, boy, we're going to be a wholesale slaughter. It's going to continue. But what is that a picture of, everybody? When everybody's destroyed, it's a picture of the final judgment. In the final judgment, will there be any mercy?
No.
Everybody who is not written in the Lamb's Book of Life lives forever in the lake of fire. So did these people have a chance to turn to the living God?
Yes, they did.
Yes, they did. Do you think any of the Amorites, when they heard about the Israelites coming, even though the king and all the officials were against the Israelites, do you think there may have been a few straggler Amorites that could have said, you know what? Our leaders are dumb. They don't see God, the true God, showing himself. I want the true God. The Bible doesn't give us any of this happening. We know it's going to happen with Rahab, but we don't see it happening here. But could it be possible that there could have been 2 or 3 people that said that belonged to the Amorite kingdoms? And you know what? I'm switching sides. If you can't beat them, join them, right? I want to go on the winning side. I want to know the God of Israel because he is the only great God. Our gods are nothing. And I'm tired of worshiping nothings. I want to worship the true God. Do you think that could have happened to a few people?
Yeah.
Sure. That doesn't tell us everything. But, so,
Bless you.
you understand? You understand? So don't be ashamed when anybody attacks the Bible and say, oh, the Bible teaches genocide. There's no need to be ashamed or embarrassed. People who talk like that just don't understand the real issues. Okay? All right? I hope that's helpful to you. So, you would think that the Moabites, since they got spared, oh, they would really want to help the Israelites. Right?
They didn't.
I mean, the Moabites were spared. The Israelites got all the Amorite territory, all that 150 land and huge area. You think the Moabites were like hey, we want to be on your side now, Israel. We want to be your friends. Because we're going to see the Moabites, how they are going to resist by hiring a prophet for hire, Balaam. We have a very curious story in Numbers 22, 23, and 24 of Balaam and Balak. Very confusing story. So we'll pick that up next time. All right, thank you all for your patience listening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome back. How you doing?
Just wanted to know.